Welcome to the Hosehead Electric Brewery Control How-To video series. I'm Corey with Brewtronix.com. Today I'm going to talk about Raspberry Pi configuration. Raspberry Pi configuration can be found under the menu and preferences. Raspberry Pi configuration. What this is going to allow you to do is change some settings on your controller. We can change our password. The current password that ships as default with Raspbian operating system is Raspberry. So if you want to change your password, you need to type in Raspberry and then enter your new password and your new password again. Hostname. Hostname is what the Raspberry Pi refers to as itself. If you notice in Strangeberry Elsinore, it says http raspberry pi :8080/controller. If we change this name to, say, beer, we'll need to change the name under Elsinore as well, or on the Chromium browser, to reflect that name change, being, instead of Raspberry Pi, beer, or whatever you decide to change it to. The boot screen, we're going to boot to desktop. If this is checked, it's going to boot it to the command line shell rather than the desktop. That is not what we want. We want it to boot to the desktop, so don't change that unless you know what you're doing. Auto login, basically this logs you in without having to type in a password when the controller boots up. Network at boot. If this is checked, it's going to wait for a network connection, be it wired or wireless, before it connects and boots to the desktop screen. Splash screen enabled or disabled. Basically, that's the Raspberry Pi splash screen that says Pixel. When it turns on, you can enable it or disable it. If it's disabled, it scrolls down and shows you what it's doing in the background. If it's enabled, it just shows you the Pixel Raspberry Pi background screen and hides all the rest. We can set our resolution. This is something that's in the latest version of Raspbian operating system. It is not in the earlier versions, so you may or may not have this set resolution screen. Overscan enable or disable, depending on your monitor that's plugged in. You may have some black bars around the screen, or maybe not. You can enable or disable that to change the settings to see if you have black bars around the screen. Under the interfaces screen, we have enable or disable for camera if you had a camera directly connected. In this case, we're not using a camera on the Hosehead controller. SSH remote login enabled or disabled. We can disable it if we like. VNC remote desktop, we can enable or disable as well. SPI IC2 serial, none of that really pertains to the controller, but if you wanted to hack it and do some other things, you could enable those as well. One-wire is enabled. That tells the operating system to detect any one-wire temperature sensors that are plugged into the controller. And remote GPIO is something that we're not using either. So we can go to Performance tab. We can change our GPU memory, graphics processor unit. It's set to 64 megabytes as default. We can change it to a higher or lower number if we wanted to use less or more. And localization. We can set our location, English, United States, or if you're in a different country, you can change it to whatever country that reflects your settings. We can change our time zone. I'm currently in America, in Chicago area. But we can change it to whatever city that closely resembles where you live. We can also change our Wi-Fi country code. I'm in the United States, but if I was in a different country, I could change that to whatever to reflect it. So all in all, Raspberry Pi configuration, pretty handy little interface. Turns on and off a lot of different things. Allows you to change your password and different things as well. Just showing you how that works. Cheers, have a great day.